Our next test is the IRF-PAI. And what that stands for is Inpatient Rehabilitation Facility Patient Assessment Instrument. A mouthful. So we're going to talk about it and unpack it some. All right, so here you again have the acronym spelled out. Inpatient Rehab Facility, so that's where these patients are, and Patient Assessment Instrument, what we're going to do. We're going to assess this patient. It is the new instrument for use with Medicare patients. What it does is collects data measures, collected data goes to measure the quality of care. So we're measuring a person's skills, but we're also measuring how good is the care that they're getting in this inpatient rehab facility. The instrument is administered at admission, so when they arrive, and again at discharge, so twice. And as I said earlier, it replaces the FIM as the Medicare instrument. I also want to note that on the learning management system, I have uploaded for you the whole latest booklet and set of instructions and documentation for the IRF. So you can go there and read about it at length. So that's a resource for you. All right, so let's talk about what an IRF is. An IRF is a rehab hospital or a unit in an acute care hospital, and it's specifically designed for rehabilitation, right, as opposed to being designed to do surgical procedures and release folks. It's an intensive rehab program, which means that the patient must be able to tolerate at least 3 hours of rehab per day, which for some folks is quite a lot. So it's, the rehab could either be freestanding or it could be a unit that's available in a hospital itself, right? So a smaller unit. And there's also something called the 60% rule. This stipulates that in order for an IRF to be considered for Medicare reimbursement purposes, so again, our prospective payment system, 60% of the patients in that facility must have a qualifying condition. What are our qualifying conditions? Well, there's 13 of them, and this may actually jog your memory in terms of the IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is a whole different set of conditions, but there are a set number, and the 60% of the people within that facility have to qualify for Medicare under one of those conditions. So what are they? They're things like stroke, spinal cord injury, brain injury, and hip fracture, amongst others. But those are some common ones. There's many sections in the IRF-PAI, and so I'm going to divide that into the general sections and then the sections that are particularly important for OT to concern ourselves with. So Section A, demographic and general info. Boom, right? Section B is about hearing, speech, and vision. We're interested, but it's not our section. Section C is cognitive patterns. Again, we're interested. Section D is about mood. Section GG, I don't know where they got GG as opposed to any other letter, but it's functional abilities and goals. And this is really where the meat and potatoes are, or the tofu and potatoes for OTs, is in this section. So we're going to go into this in some more detail in a minute. Then sections H through O include physical status, medication, so what they're on, what they were on, all dosages, frequency, all of that, and the range of services that a patient might be receiving. Okay, so as promised, section GG details. That is divided into like two different little sections. So the first one is their usual abilities. What can they do before they had this most recent condition crop up, illness, injury, etc., right? So to that end, everything is coded, and the two sections, 0100 and 0110, are about prior functioning. So what could the person do initially, right? Everyday activities and device use. So it doesn't mean that they were 100% independent prior to what brought them to the IRF, but we want to look at what their baseline of functioning is prior to this incident or admission. And then the second piece is within a 3-day assessment period. That's 3 days of arrival. They need to be assessed for 0130 and 0170, which are self-care and mobility. So that should ring a bell with the FIM, right? Self-care and mobility are parts of the FIM. And we have other parts like cognitive patterns, hearing, speech, and vision, etc., that were in the FIM. They were under a different name, but still we're looking at overall function. Alrighty. We're not going to go through this, but you have this slide deck and can download it and have a look at this slide. It is all the functional abilities and goals. You'll see in the upper left, section GG. Let's see, what do I want to say about this? We're going to code for safety and quality of performance. So if there was a helper assisting and required to assist because the patient couldn't perform in a safe and good quality way, we're going to score according to the level of assist that was provided. And they include, just like the scores from 1 to 7 on the FIM, right? Only this scale, this instrument has 6. They go from independent at 6 to 5, which is setup or cleanup assist. 4 is supervision or touching assist. 3, partial or moderate. 2, substantial or max. And 1 is they are dependent. So you can look at the details of this, but those are the general classifications. And this is a sample of the scoring form, and you can see again that there's the performance at admission and the discharge goal. So again, where are they supposed to be at discharge and how well did they meet that goal? If you look in the right-hand column, you'll see that it has to do with eating, oral hygiene, toileting hygiene, and showering and bathing. All right, so that's the IRF-PAI. Again, you can access the whole resource for it online, and it has replaced the FIM for Medicare patients. That doesn't mean that the FIM is never used, but this is the current go-to instrument. All right, now on to the AMPS, which is our last instrument. So we're in the home stretch. The AMPS stands for Assessment of Motor and Process Skills. So at this point, you're probably getting the idea that even though these are 3 very different instruments, they all are covering the same basic stuff. And in all of them, we're looking at an observation-based instrument. So let's dig into the AMPS. The purpose of the AMPS is to ascertain the quality of performance of motor and process skills in a natural environment. Now, the natural environment is really key, right? Because we could take a person and put them in an artificial or lab environment, and they might perform in a totally different manner than they would in their own natural environment. So the natural environment is what we as OTs are looking for. It, in some ways, really kind of messes with doing research because we can't control all of the factors present in that environment. But for testing, it's a great place because it will also tell us, well, what affordances do they have? What compensations are they using? Things like that. All right. So it is a standardized assessment, it's observational, and it's criterion referenced. So mastery of the skill and understanding what mastery means is key to this one. What does it look like? Well, the client chooses 2 different tasks, ones that are personally relevant, we would hope, so they have a little motivation, the tasks have meaning, etc. They perform them in their natural environment, and the OT observes and takes detailed notes about how they performed and how they did on the task. The scores consider effectiveness, efficiency, safety, and level of assistance. So again, you should be kind of thinking to yourself, oh, all these tests have some things in common, right? Level of assist, level of effectiveness, same kinds of domains that we're looking at. Scoring the AMPS, it's on a 4-point scale, and again, you have this down that you can download. So we're not going to go through every piece of it in detail, but I want to give you an overview of it. The scoring works as follows. In considering the effectiveness, efficiency, and safety of the client's performance, 1 is that there's a deficit, a marked deficit. A 2 means that their performance is ineffective. 3 is their performance is questionable. And 4 is that their performance is competent. So, when you think about it, those can seem a little bit vague. And so it takes, this is another test where you need to be trained to give it. And it takes some time to understand what the differences in scores mean. So if you're like, I don't totally get it, that's totally all right. This one has computerized scoring, which is always very nice rather than writing it all out by hand. And the areas that we would be looking for are, again, with these 2 tasks, right? So 2 tasks that they pick, we're looking for body position, and you should recognize this from the OTPF, right? Stabilizes, aligns positions. Sustaining performance, again, OTPF is recalled. Obtaining and holding objects, motor performance skills, and applying knowledge, so process skills, right? And in each of these items, we are looking at the 4-3-2-1 scale. All right, so some more on scoring the AMPS. You can see that once we've done that initial scoring, we're going to rate the person on their quality of performance, or QOP, on this particular task. Then we'll do it for the other task separately. The ratings are from 1 to 6, and it's increased effort, decreased efficiency, decreased safety, or the amount of assistance that's provided. So we do all this to get down to this gray box on the bottom, right? Which is rating the person's overall ability to live in the community. And we're going to take everything that we've gathered in terms of information about the person to decide, could they live independently? Could they live with minimal assist or supervision? Or do they need moderate to max assist? In terms of specifications, and if I didn't say this, or I didn't say this recently, we're going to be looking at all of this and giving you plenty of opportunity to ask questions in class. So this is the start of it. I suggest that you do some reading around it, potentially watch some videos around it. There's resources for you on Canvas. So this is kind of the nitty-gritty, but please, 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 explore enough so that you really understand the nature of these 3 tests, and so that you can fill out your assessment form. All right, back to specs. So reliability, 0.9. Good, right? Again, our highest possible score is 1.0, so 0.9 is perfectly awesome. Validity, 0.93. Excellent, especially with regard to predictive validity. The theoretical framework for this one is MOHO. We can do this test on anyone aged 2 or over, so it goes throughout the lifespan, which is pretty nice. Cost, wah wah, almost $1,000 plus the required training. So this is not a test that would be purchased by like some little tiny OT clinic like mine, for example. It's more a test that is given at larger institutions simply because of the cost to purchase it, and the information that it gives at the end of the day is really about like when the person's discharged, what are they going to be able to do, right? So very particular kind of information that will inform further treatment and care. The time to administer is about 30 to 40 minutes, and the users must again have explicit training, access to the database, and the computer scoring system. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that one. All right, so please go back and review these. As I said, go back and review the resources, your readings, the slide deck, etc. And here is a review slide that compares the 3 instruments. So the FIM, the kind of catchphrase is burden of care. The AMPS is motor and processing skills around ADLs, and the person's going to choose 2. The IRF-PAI is a wide range of info, including functional abilities and cognitive patterns. Then our test from last week, the COPM, is more of an open-ended questionnaire. It identifies strengths, problems, and concerns in occupational performance from a client's perspective. The OPHI 2 is about a person's life history, and we identify motivation, performance, and occupational function in everyday life. And then finally, the CAWA is the last instrument that we've looked at to date, and that's about life energy, strengths, liabilities, as well as life's difficulties and circumstances. So, questions? Please bring them to class with you. I hope this has been a helpful lecture, and I will see you real soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.